आचार्य जी।
ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ तत्सत्। ॐ नमः शिवाय।
ओम नमः शिवाय।
So we are still on the first verse of chapter 16. So let us chant that again. श्रीभगवानुवाच
श्रीभगवानुवाच
अभयं सत्त्वसंशुद्धिः
अभयं
अभयं
सत्त्वसंशुद्धिः
सत्त्वसंशुद्धिः
ज्ञानयोगव्यवस्थितिः
ज्ञानयोगव्यवस्थितिः
दानं दमश्च यज्ञश्च
दानं दमश्च यज्ञश्च
स्वाध्यायस्तप आर्जवम्
स्वाध्यायस्तप आर्जवम्.
So we had completed the first line, I think so. Yeah. Now we are looking at the second line, the first word, Danam. Okay. Now Danam is charity, right? Now we have stories in the Puranas where people give everything, including their own lives, as Danam when asked for. But Shankara, I think, is not very, enthusiastic about that. So he says, Danam yatha shakti samvibhagaha. Samvibhagaha means what? Sharing. Yatha Shakti means according to your own capacity. So sharing according to your own capacity, and it can be annam, it can be time, it can be energy, it can be your skill, whatever, right? Therefore, dhanam is a very important virtue because it has a few very important, benefits. What is that? One is it serves as a remover, an antidote for a very serious mental illness called what? Lobha, greed. What is greed caused by? Greed is caused by a sense of insecurity. Like, what will I do tomorrow? What will happen to me? When I grow old, what should I do? Will I have any people around me? Will I have any money with me? Will I have to go to an old age home? So all these problems are always bothering us. And because of this insecurity, we go on accumulating things. So that is a huge misconception. Shastra says, if you think that sense of insecurity will go away, if you have more external possessions, there is no, truth in that kind of an understanding, in that kind of a conclusion. What is the proof? There are people around you, you can just look around, who have huge amount of possessions and they continue to be insecure. And there are also many people around you who have very minimal possessions and yet they are very secure, right? Therefore, you don't need Shastra to tell you that. Shastra is telling you, but you can verify it with your common sense and your pratyaksham. See around you, you will see that the sense of security has no real connection with. I will once again request people, if there are people talking in the house, please unmute yourself. I mean, please mute yourself because you're disturbing the recording. Okay. And then you will see that you can use your common sense to see around you and note that having possessions and having security has no connection. It's a very big delusion. that if I increase my possession, my insecurity will go away. Remember that greed expresses in two ways. One is it wants to grab more and more, get more and more. And two is that whatever you have, you don't want to give away. So this is the connection with dana. And because of this greed, what happens? You begin to cut corners. You begin to compromise with dharma. If you compromise with dharma, remember it leads to adharma. Adharma leads to papam. Papam leads to himsa. So that's one problem, one way in which greed expresses by not wanting to give away anything which you have, and not only that, by wanting to get more and more. And such people you can make out. The first thing is that he is always suspicious. He is never trustworthy. He never trusts anybody. He thinks everybody wants his possessions of money only. So easy to make out such a person. The second manifestation of greed is that it is more social. If you are greedy and you are keeping on building wealth for yourself, what will happen? The gap between the rich and the poor always increases. Do you agree?
Yes, Acharya, we see it all around us.
And when this gap increases, what is the immediate manifestation of society?
Crime.
The crime will increase, right? You will have people kidnapping people, you will have people attacking people. So the rich person will feel more and more insecure, right? And therefore, this very money which you think is making you feel secure, that very money will end up in making you more insecure. And the Shastra says that to have a peaceful and healthy social society, you need people who are willing to share their wealth with those who don't have. So that is the second indicator. Greed needs to be taken away so that insecurity can disappear. And there is a very important Vedantic indicator also, Vedantic reason for dana. What is that? It is an indicator to judge yourself. Do you have detachment or not? If you have detachment, you will find that giving charity will be comfortable for you. If you don't have detachment, dhanam is going to be very painful exercise every time you do it. Right? Because you're attached to your wealth, your money. The fourth reason is that Shastra considers dhanam to be a very important prayashchitta karma. That's why you may be knowing that when a person dies, varieties of charitable acts are done. Dhanam is given. Right? Therefore, it's a very important prayashchitta karma. You are doing the dhanam as a prayashchitta karma for all the papam that person has committed in his life, which he may not have done. Because of his attachment, he may not have given dhanam. So you are doing it as a relative or as a son or a daughter or whatever. And the last one is dhanam is a very important sadhana for him. Why? Remember, at one day or the other, you will have to hand over your body itself, right? You can't hold on to the body forever. And body is the most precious, treasure which I have. Therefore, unless you have practiced dhanam regularly in this life, you will find that when the time comes to hand over the body, your mind is going to be very disturbed. But if you have practiced dhanam regularly, what will happen when death comes? You will find that this is another thing which I'm giving away. I've given away so many things in my life. One more thing won't matter. So your mind won't be very disturbed. Okay. But is Dhanam easy? So Shastra says, Shastra somewhere has given a Shubhachitam. He says, they say, Sateshu Jayate Shuraha. Among 100 persons, there will be one Shuraha. Sateshu, 100 persons. Jayate Shuraha. Among 100 persons, there will be born one Shuraha, one courageous person. And Sahasreshu Cha Panditaha. Among thousands of people, Sahasreshu Panditaha Jayate. You will find that there is one scholar, one wise person. And Vaktaha Shatasahasreshu. In hundreds of thousands, you will find one good teacher. Vaktaha is one who speaks, the Guru. So in hundreds of thousands of people, one good teacher is born. But Tata Bhavati Nava. You will find it almost impossible to find a person who gives dana. So Shastra itself admits that doing dhanam is not easy. It requires lifetimes of punyam to be able to give comfortably. So the question is, how do we start? How do we start the dhanam? If you have not done till today, supposing, for example, I'm not saying you have not done. I'm sure all of you have given dhanam. But in case we are among those few miserable souls who have not done any dhanam at all, and today by some chance after listening to this class, you say, okay, fine, let me start giving dhanam. What is the first thing that you should give? How should you start dhanam?
Food.
With
People?
the time,
With the
Food.
time.
oh, well, why? Why time?
I think it's
You don't have
If
you don't have unlimited
have
time,
any-
right? Time is like
Yes.
everything else. You don't have unlimited part of it. So you start by giving what you don't want. I mean, it may sound very funny, but let us say you look in a cupboard and you will find that you have 44 short half pants. Out of them, 10 you are not using at all because they have become small for you, they become tight for you, they become old for you, whatever. Start giving that away. For a person who has not done dhanam, even that will be quite an exercise. When you start with things that you don't want, and after some time of giving away things that you don't want, then you look at your cupboard and say, what is it that I want, but I can give away, and I can live with giving that away. So slowly, slowly, this is how you Shanai, Shanai, as Krishna says. All these points, all these virtues have to be developed very slowly. You can't do it in one shot. And Shankara therefore writes somewhere, Yatha Shakti Samvibhagaha. Give only according to your capacity. It's a very important note. Because you are a giver. So don't give so much that later on you will need to ask. It's a very important note. Don't give without discrimination. Don't place yourself in a position where you have to ask for dhanam later. Because if you have to ask for dhanam later, then the entire process of giving dhanam has become meaningless. And you will see that we will come across in Taitriya soon. Shraddhaya deyam, ashraddhaya deyam. So there are two ways of looking at it. Shraddhaya deyam, give with proper shraddha, proper attitude. Ashraddhaya adeyam. Do not give with improper attitude. Okay, so that can also be, which we will see when we see the Upanishad, that can also be read as ashraddhaya deyam, which means that even if you don't have proper attitude, just give. What is the logic behind the second one? Shraddhaya deyam, ashraddhaya deyam, adayam. You can understand. Give with proper attitude, with proper shraddha, which means when you're giving, you are of course blessed. But shraddhaya, you should ensure that the receiver also feels blessed. Never do anything which makes the receiver feel humiliated. Right? So there's a very famous Amitabh Bachchan dialogue over here. I don't know if you remember. What is the dialogue? Nobody see Amitabh Bachchan movies.
Take away
मैं
best.
जो
मैं
मार्क
पैसे
भी
पैसे
फेंक हुए
आज भी
थे
नहीं लेता
Take away पैसे नहीं लेता. I don't
हाँ,
take money thrown away. So receiver should not feel humiliated. So that is Shraddhaya Deva, right? And therefore it says Ashraddhaya Adeyam. If you do not have the capacity to give without humiliating somebody, do not give at all. It's better. Then there is a second interpretation which says Ashraddhaya Deyam. Even if you don't have the capacity to, give without humiliation, give. Because at least other person gets the benefit of the money. Whichever one you can. We will discuss this in more detail when we see Taitri. So that is Stanam. Then the next one is Damascha, Damaha, cha, and Damaha. What is Damaha? That's a very beautiful definition which Shankaracharya gives. Vahya Karnanam Upashamaha. What is Upashamaha? Withdrawal. Right? Not suppression. Voluntarily withdrawing the Bahya Karanaha, external organs. And we saw this definition Tattvabodaha. Indriya Nigraha. Indriya Nigraha. The control of the sense organs. Not suppression. Voluntarily withdrawing the sense organs. Like Upashamaha, it says withdrawal. Right? So in this, what do? You, in all your interactions, you make sure that all activity is undertaken with deliberation, which means no act of yours, no word of yours is ever uttered under the influence of raga and dvesha. I'm not saying you won't have raga and dvesha. You will have. The mind has raga and dvesha. You will have raga and dvesha. Sometimes you will feel anger coming up, hatred coming up. But watch those emotions. Don't act on them. Those emotions which are not invited, they are because of the natural tendency of the mind. So just watch them and then deliberate over them and then take an action. Right? So when supposing, for example, I say, don't act under the influence of raga. If I have a sudden desire for eating strawberry ice cream when I'm passing the ice cream shop, the idea here is that I'm not saying don't go and eat the ice cream. What am I saying? Consider, should I eat the ice cream or not? What are the factors which should go into the consideration? For example, a small example, right? You're passing an ice cream shop. You love strawberry ice cream. You see a new, nice big cup over there with 50% discount. Should you eat the ice cream or not? It is definitely been triggered by raga, the thought. But the act of eating the ice cream, what all should it consider? For example, anybody?
Shreyas and prayers.
No, not in general terms. I'm talking about specific ice cream thought.
if you have any sugar problem that you should be avoiding, any health issue that it makes you avoid.
The health issues, you're cold, do you have a lecture to give next day? Do you have enough money? Or the money which your wife sent to buy tomatoes, are you using that money for the ice cream? So many things, right? So if after all that, then you do deliberately, then it is not under the influence of Raga. Similarly with Dvesha also. So this is how you have to decide what is good for me in my spiritual growth. So mastery over the sense organs for that purpose. Then yajnascha, yajnaha. So yajnaha means worship. And here yajnaha is defined as to be of two types. Shrauta yajnaha. The word Shrauta refers to what?
Shruti? Shruti?
Shruti. Right. And therefore, Shrauta Yajnaha means all the yajnas which are prescribed in the Veda itself, in Karma Kanda itself. Okay, like what? Agnihotra, Sandhya Vandanam, and so on. Then there is Smarta Yajnaha, not Smart Yajna, Smarta Yajna. So Shrauta refers to Shruti, Smarta refers to what?
Shruti?
Smriti.
Smriti?
Smriti. Therefore, and remember, generally, as a general rule, anything which is not Shruti can be very broadly classified into Smriti. And Smriti can be then further classified into Itihasa, Purana, all those things. Right? Okay. So, any ritual not prescribed in the Veda itself, by Shruti itself, but prescribed in non-Vedic scriptures. So, Itihasa, Purana, all these things, they are called Smarta Yajna. Right? Now, we have talked earlier in the Gita about Deva Yajna, Panchamaha Yajna, Deva Putra Yajna, all that. Bhuta Yajna, Brahma Yajna. These are all Smarta Yajnas. They are not prescribed in Shruti. They are prescribed in subsidiary texts. Okay. So, having said that, we should not forget that even when you do yajna, Shastra talks about two forms of yajna. One is the regular yajna where you sit down properly, you have a bath, sit down, mantras, puja and homa, as they're called. That is the regular ceremonial worship. What is the other? Ishvara Arpana, where every activity of yours, starting from brushing your teeth to drinking your tea, is offered to the Lord, which is called the Karma Yoga attitude. Right. So we have seen this before. Ishvara Arpana Bhavana, Ishvara Prasada Bhavana. So we have also seen one beautiful little verse. Yat yat karam karoti tat tat akhilam shambho tava aradhana. Whatever I do, whatever actions I do, hey Shambho, hey Lord Shiva, all those actions are entirely being offered to you as obeisance, as my arpana. So remember that within this definition, don't say that, okay, fine, every action of mine is arpanam, therefore why should I do any formal puja? Shastra says formal puja must be there. If you have a family, if you have children, sitting in the morning, at least once a week, regularly, if possible, daily, but at least once a week, sit for an hour, do puja, chant mantras, read the Bhagavad Gita, let the incense sticks be there, do it properly. There will be an atmosphere of auspiciousness. And not only that, it will drive home the importance of puja to the children. A lot of parents don't do that today, which is why you see so many problems in the younger generation. Okay, then we have Swadhyaya. So Swadhyaya, Shankara says, Rig Veda Adi Adhyanam. The scriptural study of texts like Rig Veda, etc. So we call this what? We call this Brahma Yajna in our discussions. What is the purpose of Brahma Yajna? It is for generating punya. Adrishtartham. For generating adrishta punya. What is the use of punyam? That punyam can be utilized by a Vedantic student for Chitta Shuddhi. And that Chitta Shuddhi and more punyam will help it taking you to a guru later, to a teacher later, right? So if you are, of course, not a Vedantic student, you can still do the Swadhyaya, but that punyam is not going to bring in Chitta Shuddhi. And this Swadhyaya can be taken as in two parts. One is just plain recitation. Every morning get up, chant one chapter of the Gita, right? Or any other text. So this is simple recitation even without knowing the meaning. Shastra says that this recitation will bless the house, will make it auspicious, and meaning it will guard against all types of evils, including too much materialistic tendencies. Now, in the case of a non-Vedic text, you can recite in any tune. For example, Bhagavad Gita. Is it a Vedic text?
No.
It's
No.
Smriti.
No,
It is Smriti.
it's from
It is
that.
Smriti, right?
Yeah, Bhishma
Now,
Parva.
have you seen that Gita is recited can be recited in more than one tune?
Yes.
Yes.
The tune which you recite in class or even in chanting class is different from, let us say, the tune which Aravind is giving,
Arvind ji does.
right? So tunes are different. There is no fixed tune. So that for a non-Vedic scripture, you can recite in different tunes. In fact, for Vishnu Sahasranama, there can be multiple tunes depending upon who is the teacher. But in Vedic recitation, you can't have that freedom. And that is why if you see what Arvind teaches as far as the Veda is concerned, Upanishad is concerned, it is consistent throughout. So it has to be Vedic recitation learned from a guru. Okay, that is one type of recitation. You need not know the meaning. The other type of recitation is chanting with understanding of the meanings. So this will happen to you, for example, after you are doing this class, when you recite. See, we have not yet finished one verse. Okay, we have spent 1.5 classes on this, 1.5 hours almost. Now, when you chant that one verse, you know the meaning of each word. So this is with chanting with meanings. That is the second type of recitation. The second type is obviously superior to the first type. First type also blesses. Second type also blesses. Then the next one is tapaha. So tapaha means voluntarily, and voluntarily is very important. Deliberately undertaking an unpleasant or painful experience to develop a little toughening of your personality. It can be either physical or mental. The purpose is that my body and mind will be tough enough to withstand pain and difficulty. Right? One very popular tapaha is this 41 days of abstinence before you go to Sabrimala. Similarly, people going to Kedarnath and Badrinath, what do? They don't go they don't go with proper covering, wearing huge sweaters and all that. They don't go. They don't call it suffering. They call it tapaha. The only difference between tapaha and suffering is what?
Or is
Voluntarily.
voluntarily
Voluntarily.
is something that comes to you.
One is voluntarily, one is forced upon you by circumstances or by somebody else. Right? So when a suffering a painful experience which you undertake is a tapas when you have undertaken it voluntarily for toughening yourself. And tapa is considered to be a very, very useful sadhana. Why? Because if you have strengthened your mind through various sadhanas, various tapaha, when you face a situation in life, and remember there are situations in life which are choiceless. There will be painful situations in life caused by prabhala prarabdha. What is prabhala prarabdha? Prabhalam means very strong prarabdha. Very strong prarabdha means what? For which there is no immediate remedy. So there is also durbhala prarabdha. But durbhala prarabdha is weak prarabdha. Both give you pain. But the prabhala prarabdha pain cannot be avoided because the remedy is not there. Durbhala prarabdha is weak prarabdha. And because it is weak, you have the option, the choice of undertaking acts to reduce the pain. Okay. For example, if I have got, let us say, a bad cold and fever, is that because of Durbala Prarabdha or Prabala Prarabdha?
Durbala. I can take
Because you can
medication.
take
And,
medicine, right? Now, if you have been in an accident and broken your hip,
That
is
is a
that
prob-
that is
that-
Prabala Prarabdha?
that is
Right? Because there's nothing much you can do at that point of time. You can probably go get a hip replacement, stuff like that. Takes time, but it'll still leave you with pain. Therefore, the remedy is what? Developing titiksha. And tapaha is a very useful sadhana for developing titiksha. And when you have titiksha, there is another benefit is that I don't react impulsively to situations. So there is no reaction. There is always action. The difference between reaction and action is a reaction is without thought. It's impulsive. It can worsen the situation. While a proper action, a response, to use the right word, is after you have evaluated your actions in terms of effects, right, wrong, beneficial, non-beneficial. And this titiksha is useful because it avoids the impulsive reaction. It gives me the space, the time to help me to analyze, think, and then act at the proper time. Okay. Then tapaha, of course, has pain attached to it, whether it is voluntary or not. That suffering has got pain. That's why it's called suffering. Shastra says that you should know that suffering is not meant just to cause you pain, but suffering is meant to teach you very, very critical lessons through that pain. Right? So the important role of suffering is not causing pain. The overriding importance of suffering is to teach you, especially teach you in the spiritual field. And remember one thing that you may have noticed this in your life also. Every painful lesson which you get is ultimately meant to teach you something. And if you don't learn from that lesson, nature is a very, uncompromising taskmaster. It'll keep on bringing the pain in different forms until such time as you learn the lesson. It's very important. Then, if I have to learn the lesson from suffering, what sort of mind should I have? I should have a mind which is relatively undisturbed. If suffering emotionally disturbs me, my reaction will be only a reaction. I will never be able to learn from the suffering. Therefore, learning is possible only when there is titiksha, when there is tolerance toward the suffering. And that is why tapaha is very important in developing that particular tolerance. Otherwise, you will never have any learning from any pain. And you will continue to get the pain. Then Arjavam is the last word here. So Arjavam means being straightforward all the time. Right? What does it mean? We have seen in our earlier studies that there are 4 layers of your personality. The koshas, active layers. Okay, there are 5. One is not active. The 5th one. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya we are not considering because it is not normally active or influencing your actions. So these are the 4 layers of your personality. Right. Annamaya is physical body. Pranamaya is your pranic personality. Manomaya is the emotions, the emotional personality. And Vijnanamaya is the intellectual side of your personality. All 4 act together. Acting together, what is the expression of your personality that somebody else sees? They see your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. Right? So when these 4 layers of your personality are in harmony, the manifestation will also be in harmony. And if the manifestation is in 3 forms, thoughts, words, and deeds, then these 3 will also be in harmony. That all these 3 should be in harmony. That personality is called Arjavam. Okay. So there is a little Sanskrit Subhashita will describe this. Manasyekam vachasyekam karmani ekam mahatmanam. Understand? Mahatma, Mahatma, a great mind, has what? Manasyekam vachasyekam karmani ekam. He has something he thinks, he speaks in harmony with that, and he acts in harmony with that. Therefore, Mahatmas, their minds, their words, and their actions are all uniformly in one direction. On the other hand, Manasi Anyat, Vachasi Anyat, Karmani Anyat, Duratmanaha. You can follow. Duratmanaha, the one who is not a Mahatma, the evil personality. Manasi Anyat has some sort of thoughts. Vachasi Anyat speaks completely different things. And Karmani Anyat does something completely differently. So Duratmana can say one thing, can do another thing, and can be thinking of third thing. There is no Arjava. What is the problem with not having Arjava? You have different layers of your personality. One layer is pulling in one direction. You're thinking something else. You are saying something else. That layer is pulling in another direction. You are doing something else. That is pulling in a third direction. You are creating a strain in your personality. And when the strain goes beyond a limit, it expresses as emotional ill health and physical ill health. Okay. And therefore, remember that Arjavam is very important to help you remain balanced and stable. Because, and one more, Why is Arjavan important also is because when you compromise on your Arjavam, remember that you are acting under the influence of Ragadesha. And therefore, ask yourself every day, what I think, what I say, and what I do, are they in harmony? If they are not, if they are not straightforward, if I am not a straightforward person, it is because I am under the influence of Ragadesha, whether I admit it or not. So very, very beautiful little first verse. Okay. Now let us go to the second verse. We'll chant. Ahimsa satyamakrodha
Ahimsa satyamapkrodha
tyagah shantirapeshwanam
Tyagah
daya bhuteshvalo luktvam
Dayabhuteshvaloluktvam
mardavam rira chapalam.
Madhavam Rita Chapalam.
So more virtues. Ahimsa. And Shankara describes it very beautifully. Pranina pida varjana. Pida means hurt. Praninam pida varjana means avoiding hurt to other living beings, not just human beings. And we have discussed this in the 13th chapter also about avoidance of violence at the Kaika level, the Vachika level, and the Manasika level. Right? Shastra says that you must remember that what you give to the world is what you will ultimately get back. And if you have been depositing violence in the world all the time, how will you ever get back anything but violence? So, ahimsa is a very, very important idea. Now, on the value of ahimsa, very misunderstood. Is ahimsa value absolute? Is a question which a lot of people ask. Right? Remember, there will be occasions, specific occasions, when hinsa, violence becomes necessary. But in general, ahimsa is the rule. But as in the case of every general rule, every value has an exception also. So there are cases where non-violent methods may miserably fail. Just as it failed in the case of Duryodhana. And when non-violent methods do not achieve the result, do not achieve the objective of protection of dharma and maintenance of peace, what happens? The only available means is what is left, which is violence, himsa. So there is nothing wrong in himsa, providing other methods have failed. Right? So Krishna actually has gone one step further in the Bhagavad Gita and says that this dharma is the very core of this, where the fight is for protection of dharma, righteousness only. He says, we will not give you papam. On the other hand, he says, it will give you punyam. All this he has told Arjuna in the second chapter. Okay. Then the next one is Satyam. So Satyam Akrodha has to be broken into Satyam plus Akrodha. So Satyam is, Shankara again defines, Apriya Anrita Varjitam. Each word is very important. Apriya Anrita Anavarjitam and Yatha Bhuta Artha Vachanam. Each word is very, very important. We will discuss. Satyam is Apriya Anrita Varjitam Yatha Bhuta Artha Vachanam. Okay. So look at the words yatha, yatha, bhuta, artha, vachanam. Vachanam, saying something, yatha, bhuta, artha, just as it is. What does it mean? No embellishments, nor are you underplaying something. You are describing something exactly as it is. Yatha, bhuta, artha. Right? That is the first one. Satyam means yatha, bhuta, bhutartha. You have to tell something as it is, as it happened or as it looks. No additions, no subtractions. And there is second aspect. Apriya anrita varjitam. Apriya anrita varjitam. Varjitam means you have to connect the varjitam to vachanam. Vachanam varjitam, not telling. Apriya satyam, not telling unpleasant truth. Right? So if speaking the truth is going to hurt a person, then you should invoke the first principle, which is ahimsa. So if speaking the truth is going to be hinsa, then I should not speak the truth. Be very careful. I'm not saying speak untruth, right? Not speak the truth is not the same as speaking untruth. How will you understand? What is the way in which one understand that?
Truth, the whole truth, and nothing
Oh.
but the truth.
Be quiet.
If there is
See
any
your
truth
lips.
which is gonna
If your lips say,
It will hurt. Huh.
Be quiet.
it says avoid speaking the truth. Don't go around, saying that I'm speaking the truth, therefore I'm great. There's no point. You're hurting the person. So avoid speaking untruth. Asatya varjanam. Also, you should avoid speaking the truth. That is one. This particular aspect has apriya varjanam. You should not speak the unpleasant truth. At the same time, anrita varjitam. You should not speak the untruth also. It's a very fine aspect we are talking about. Satyam means speaking the words which reflect the actual circumstances. That's one. And under this, in fact, over this, overriding factor is if those words will cause pain, don't speak. At the same time, anrita varjitam. Do not tell lies. It's a very, very finely balanced act. But sometimes, especially if you are a parent or a person in authority, you have to speak painful truths also. How do you speak a painful truth? So that's any one of us who has been in the role of a leader anywhere will know that there are many occasions where you will have to tell a painful truth. Let us say that you are having an employee who's not doing well. Okay. Or who has some flaws in the way in which he is working. How will you approach? You don't stand in the hall and then tell him, oh, you're a moron, you can't even do this properly. You don't do that. You first take him to your room. And then, what is the first thing you say? You speak a lot of good things about him. Say what all he has done earlier, how he has benefited the company, how you think all these things is good. What are you doing with speaking all these pleasant truths? You are creating a emotional cushion for him. Once he is feeling nice and cushioned and he knows that you have good opinion about him, then speak the unpleasant truth as briefly as possible and do not keep on dwelling on it. Just say this is what has happened and this is what we think is the cause, and therefore you should take, whatever steps you need to rectify that. Suggest some steps if you want. Make it very practical. So that's what the whole thing means. This is all part of current management practice, okay? All this has been given in Bhagavad Gita thousands of years ago. And not only that, we have another quotation from Manusmriti. I think you may have heard. Satyam bruyat, speak the truth. Priyam bruyat, speak what is pleasant. Na bruyat, satyam apriyam. Do not speak the untruth, nor should you speak what is not pleasant. Very beautiful little line. Priyam cha nanratam bruyat. Esha dharma sanatanaha. Speak what is pleasant and what is not the untruth. Priyam bruyat. Speak what is pleasant. Na anratam bruyat. Do not speak the untruth. Esha dharmaha sanatanaha. This is Sanatana Dharma. Manusmriti. Okay. The thing is, what is the cause which leads you to speaking untruth? That's a very important question to ask. Why, if at all, I tell lies? Why do I tell lies? And if you think about it,
Insecurity,
Fear,
insecurity, fear.
of
fear.
what?
Fear.
Of what?
Fear of loss of image, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. So you are unwilling to see or let somebody else see certain aspects of what you are. Right? And that is why you lie. So take it right back to the earlier verse, Arjavam. Thoughts, words, and actions must be in one line. So if you have certain aspects of your personality, it is known to you. Therefore, your thoughts are different from your words, which are different from your actions. There is lack of Arjavam. Is that clear? What is the reason for asatyam? Is that you lack Arjavam. Fair enough? Okay. Then the next one is
Acharya,
Akrodha. Yeah, tell me.
when we are using Arjavam, that time we are straightforward, right? But when we are not telling the Satyam, when we are,
It is lack of Arjavam, isn't it?
yeah.
So that's what I was saying.
So,
When
but
you are
if
not.
the painful truth is avoidable, then we are not using Arjavam, right?
No, this is a different thing. We said avoid lies. When we say na anrudam priya, not telling the truth is not the same as telling lies. Don't get confused. Is it?
Yeah, got it.
Right. That's the point being made out. That if you are telling the untruth, then there is lack of arjava. If you are not telling the untruth, and if you are not telling the truth also, that point doesn't arise at all. Because then you're conforming to the other part of it. Priyam Briyat.
Okay.
So all this you have to think very carefully about. Mananam is required for all of this for it to assimilate. It's not just simple words.
Right.
Okay. We don't have time for
Acharya,
Yeah, please go on.
so where does Narova Kunjarova fall? Priyam or lack of Arjavam.
Can you explain that?
When Yudhishthira was asked, when Ashwatthama dies in Mahabharata,
Yeah.
he's supposed to, he was asked because he's supposed to be telling truth all the time.
Yes.
So when they come to him, he says Narova Kunjarova. He pretends as if he's not very clear about who exactly was killed. So it's a lack of Arjavam.
That's only part of the story. What is the full story? What does he say?
The
Um,
elephant's
Said
name
something
was
loudly, and but the other
Yeah, he
He says Ashwatthama,
Huh?
and then he
Hataha.
adds very softly the elephant.
okay.
So what is it? Lie or truth?
Is it
The
Arjavam?
intention is not
Intention.
the truth, right?
The,
The
the,
intention
the
is
story itself tells you it is the untruth. How does it tell you?
Because Yudhishthira went to Narakadvara.
No, Yudhishthira's, was it Yudhishthira's chariot or whatever, was floating always a few centimeters above the earth, it seems. And when he said this,
It went.
it touched the earth. Was it chariot or was it his legs? I'm not very sure of this part of the story, but I think it was chariot. And therefore, the story itself tells you that it was a
Lie.
unnecessary, it was a lie. Okay. And he was punished for that because he had to go to Naraka
Yeah.
sometime.
Thank you.
Okay, so a lie is a lie. You could have simply kept quiet.
Acharya ji,
Yeah.
that ice cream part you said, uh, you say it's because of raga dvesha. And after thinking over, if you still go and eat ice cream, is it raga?
There is nothing wrong in giving it to raga.
Mhm.
I have
And
never
about
said
the
that.
about the three personalities I wanted to say, because it happens. You want something, you have your own value system, but because of raga, you happen to do something else.
Then you are acting against your intellect.
So how to get assimilate both of those?
These two things, see, when raga is ending up in something which is not good for you, then you should not do it.
Okay.
When raga doesn't take away from that, you are not, we have thousands of, karmas. For what purpose? For getting what you desire. Veda is not against what you desire. Having raga is fine. But that objective which you are gaining through your raga should not go against your own interests or against interests of society. That is what is meant.
Okay.
Nobody says don't, gain objects of desire, but don't gain objects of desire which are going to be bad for you. Prayas versus Shreyas, always.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
What
spending
about-
time in watching a half an hour program or something like that, actually, it is not prayers. I mean,
Spending time
it is not for Shreya. It is
We
not
are
for
not
moksha.
about, yeah, not for moksha. No, I'm in this context, I am saying prayers and shreyas is what is good for you, what is not good for you.
Okay.
The original, in the Shastric concept, context, it is prayer, good versus moksha, pleasant versus moksha, but here I'm saying good versus not good.
Okay. Okay, fine. Thank you.
So what about if a person is keeping quiet when the truth has to be told? That comes under which category?
It depends
Keeping
on
mouth.
what is your role over there. Are you just a simple bystander? Then keep your mouth shut. If you are a role which requires, like a parent, for example, then all that which I said about, making first giving good things and then softening the blow, all that will come into play.
But speaking will cause harm to one and good to the other, like a judge kind of a person. Then, if
Judge
you
is
have
not doing it as as his own, out of his own thing. He's operating as a judge in a role of in a particular role. That role has nothing to do with that role. You act according to the role. That is what the whole thing is about. Gita, the whole thing is about that only, right? Killing people is bad. As a soldier, you have to kill people. So don't confuse the role with the person. In a role, if you are called upon to do things which hurt people, that's it. Try not to at the best of your ability. But if you can't, and if you're honest to your role, there is no problem. That's exactly the teaching that Krishna gives. If you kill people in the righteous war, there is no problem involved. In fact, there is punyam involved. So I'm saying, assimilate this properly. It is very easy to, misinterpret all this according to Ragadvesha. No decision should be driven by Ragadvesha. You can do things according to your Raga, but providing all the consequences have been examined. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank
Om
you.
Om.
Thank you.